Yo, what's going on, guys? My name's Tom, and welcome to podcast number 8. On this episode, we have Halo 3 / Halo Reach Team Slayer legend sSyphoN. Despite this podcast being a little bit shorter than the other ones, I think this is a really good listen. So if you guys are into Halo history and stuff like that, and obviously, I mean, there's some things we talk about that don't even really pertain to Halo. So I think that there's a lot of things that you can relate to in this video. So I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. As always, his links will be in the description, so make sure you guys check them out. You're widely regarded as the best Halo 3 Team Slayer player of all time. Take us back to the beginning.
Okay, so I remember playing Halo 1, and I started out with campaign, and I would play with my brothers. I thought the campaign was so captivating to me. Like, I cared about the campaign,
Yeah.
while that definitely diminished as the Halos have changed. I've been more into multiplayer, but Halo 1, I was strictly just campaign. I didn't play Xbox Connect or anything, didn't really know how that worked. And then, yeah, I would just play with my brothers, and I loved the game, and I loved the story, and that's what got me into it. I would play Halo 2 with my brother. He was like a level 48 legit, and I would just play on his tag sometimes, and I was pretty much a noob. I'd play custom zombie games and like hide and seek games. Eventually I started playing Team Slayer playlists by myself in Halo 2 when I got myself up to like a level 44 running solo, 45s running solo. As you can imagine, there's a lot of modding going on in that period of time. But
What was your brother's gamertag and your gamertag, just for those who are interested?
so my brother's gamertag was Bear Down, and mine was AZBala06, and that was my first gamertag.
This is kind of off topic here, but like, how did you think of the name sSyphoN?
So that's really a good question, and it's not like a very interesting story. All what I did was go through a dictionary. I went through the dictionary and I went through words that I liked how they sounded, and I liked how siphoned sound and rolled off the tongue, and I stuck with it.
I think a lot of people did that back in the day, like more people than they'd like to admit. That was kind of like a different era, though, back then. The late 2000s, people started to, like, come up with these weird OGs and look through dictionaries. So it's kind of cool that stuck with you for however many years. It's been like, what, 12 years?
Yeah, 12 plus years, and I don't plan on changing it.
So Halo 3 had a lot of ranked playlists, like Lone Wolves, Doubles, SWAT, Snipers, MLG. What was so captivating about Team Slayer to you?
I love that playlist because there was so many things that you can use to your advantage that people were not using. Like, they would just think, I can out BR this guy 1, 2, 3, 4 shot. Or you can think, there's these other things on the map as well, as like equipment you can use to your advantage, power ups. You can use the laser. There's skill gaps to all these other things. You don't have to use just a BR to think that you're competitive. These other weapons, they have advantages to them, they have skill gaps, and they take skill to use.
A lot of people tend to, and we're going to talk about this later, but a lot of people tend to like devalue Slayer because they think that, ARs aren't competitive, lasers aren't competitive, vehicles aren't competitive. I know a lot of people who were Team Slayer 50s, were Squad Battle 50s, who can compete with MLG players. And in fact, a lot of players who had Squad 50s and stuff were MLG 50s as well. It's kind of nonsense to think that people, just because Halo 3 has such a big sandbox and, there's ARs and there's lasers and there's bubble shields, all that stuff can be competitive in their own right and respect. MLG has less variables and less things going on, so I guess it's more competitive in that regard. But I think that, like you said, being able to use the entire sandbox, I think that's kind of a skill within itself.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing that I liked about Team Slayer is just the teamwork aspect of it and communicating and just being methodical. And I love the variety of like different maps and how to play them. They're so different. In MLG, I'm not bashing on MLG, but in MLG, it's like a lot of the same,
It's repetitive.
it's repetitive and it's the same concepts being thrown at you. But in Team Slayer, there's all these different maps, and they have all these different ways of playing them, and they have all these weapons, and you can do so many things.
In Team Slayer, for example, you have to play all the MLG and I'm speaking about Halo 3 here, obviously, and different games are going to, cater to different maps and settings. But in Halo 3, for example, you had to play the MLG maps, so Pit, Narrows, Construct, Guardian, maps like that. And those are all really, really fun and great maps. But you also had to play Sandbox, Valhalla, High Ground, Isolation, Sandbox, and all the little variants within that. There was a really big skill gap. There was, because not only did you have to be competent, close range and mid range battles, Because again, if you play a map like Snowbound, for example, you had to be pretty competent close range. Had to have a good close range game, but you also had to at least have one or two people on your team who knew how to use a chopper or who knew how to use a warthog. If you can't do that, don't you shouldn't expect to win those maps. And again, you could have a 50 without being good in vehicles. I mean, I'm not very good in vehicles, but the thing is, at the highest possible level, you had to have someone who was a vehicle guy. That element, it just adds like another layer of skill and ability. And again, people can make the argument, well, vehicles take no skill. I mean, that's debatable. Because I mean, if you put MLG pros in Team Slayer or squad battle playlist, I mean, I could assure you, if you took a team of 4 MLG pros and they played you, if it's ARs on Sandbox, I mean, it probably wouldn't be a good game.
No, no, it wouldn't be.
In your opinion, who were some of the best players to ever play Halo 3 matchmaking?
Blackjack, I thought he was really good. Donut before, and I thought he was really, really good too. Iced Out as well. I mean, there's a lot of people that are good, but like the top of my list would be, Iced Out, Dominator, Donut, Blackjack.
Who did you play with in '09 and 2010? What was your main squad? I'm not talking about the fillers, the guys that you invite when your teammates aren't on. Like who is your team? If it was like prime time West Coast hours, like who are you inviting to your lobby?
I am inviting Purple Haze. I
Purple?
love playing with Purple Haze just because he's quite underrated and he really knows how the game worked and he really showed me the ropes with Team Slayer as before like I even started running with anyone good. Purple Haze was the one that picked me up and I would play on his team and his friends and I would learn a lot from them. I kind of took off from there. I also absolutely loved playing with Godhand. We'd be like that dynamic duo and we would be really good together. So good together that when we would pick teams with our other Team Slayer friends, they wouldn't let me and Godhand be on the same team. It was against the rules for me. We could not be on the same team. And then I would also invite Demolition, Try, Dopey. Those were my main guys. I did play a ton with Syphy too, and Official. I did play with Drac and Blackjack and Louis for a bit too, and Riot.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the names I haven't heard in a while, especially Riot. Guy was really funny to play with. Very deep voice, by the way, too.
Yeah, very deep voice that doesn't go with his face.
Yeah. So, your squad, who was the squad that gave you the most problems?
The most problems.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously,
Well,
like you guys were probably the winningest Team Slayer squad
yeah.
of all time. Like realistically, like you guys won virtually all your games. What team assembled could give you guys the most issues?
Definitely a team of like Arsenal, Blackjack, and like Louis, and definitely had challenges with Baylor's team. Those were basically the two main ones. Other than that, there was UK kids that we did struggle against for obvious reasons.
Yeah, right. I mean,
I mean, we really wouldn't struggle that much against any other team.
yeah, I mean, fair enough. Fair enough. So, like MLG slash hardcore settings have always been the standard for competitive Halo. So, as a top vanilla matchmaking player, like, non MLG settings, how do you feel about the general idea or notion that vanilla settings can't be competitive?
That is absolutely just bogus. Vanilla settings can be competitive. There's proof because there's matchmaking people that are playing these vanilla playlists and they are playing it competitively. They are practicing it. They're using strats, they're using different weapons, and they're using them, to their advantage. I think that's important because vanilla is very competitive.
It's actually funny because a lot of the people like currently competing and who are actually Halo pros now, realistically, like Trippy and Gun Type and Fantasy, all these guys were radar players. All these guys would play team doubles and team Slayer, and there's definitely a very unique dynamic to a playlist like Team Slayer or Team Doubles. And I feel like we're in a time now in 2019 where people don't respect radar settings. They just don't. They look at the settings that you and I, well, mostly you, played and dominated throughout Halo 3, like the relevancy of Halo 3. I didn't come, I was a late bloomer, so the notion that those settings can't be competitive, I mean, again, a lot of these Team Slayer players did have MLG 50s, and we could play those playlists against those people. That was never really an issue. Like I'm sure you had an MLG 50. I'm sure you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like you couldn't play it. It's just preference. It's not that you couldn't compete at the highest level online. It's just that you preferred different settings because like you said, you prefer to take advantage of the sandbox. And I look at MLG and it's very fun to play. For me, the Halo 2 MLG settings are my favorite. In Halo 2, I don't like the vanilla settings in Halo 2. In Halo 3, I sort of, even though when I first started playing Halo 3, I hated the bubble shield, I hated the equipment, I learned to like it. In Halo Reach and Halo 4, you spawn with equipment. The whole class system, that doesn't take any skill, because why should I spawn with a bubble shield or a regen? Like, that doesn't make any sense. When you're fighting for equipment, I think that takes skill. And again, like you said, there's so many maps, and it's just a very unique dynamic. Team Slayer is the staple of Halo. I mean, it was in Halo 2 and 3, in Reach, Halo 4. Like, Team Slayer is always the most populated playlist, and that's not really up for debate. I could show people the Halo charts proof. I just feel like people don't respect those settings because they look at what the pros say and they just take what the pros say, like as gospel. And again, the pros, they do invest a lot of time in these games, but I could guarantee you that someone like you probably played more Halo 3 than the average pro. I
I
could,
definitely played more than the average pro.
and again, people like Iced Out, he had like what, 14 registered 50s? I mean, dude,
Yeah,
like, come on. These guys
that guy
weren't
was a
MLG
legend.
players, but these guys could play MLG if they wanted to. It's a shame that people don't respect radar settings, but again, like, I think it's just because they're misinformed.
Yeah, it's a lot of misinformation and wrong beliefs that like kind of just stuck there about the vanilla settings, and they kind of just stay there as it is because people are just going off what other people are saying,
See,
and
that's the problem, right? Like what you
is
just
people
said
aren't
is
using their own like brains or their own minds to think, about these settings and really think for themselves.
these pros, they don't respect vanilla settings because again, they're getting paid to play MLG settings, so they have no incentive to play these vanilla settings. So,
Yeah.
well, they don't. People in the Halo community, because Halo is such a small community, well, it's growing now because of MCCPC, but because Halo was such a small community, like a shrinking community for so long, they're taking what these pros are saying as gospel. And again, I could show people the proof of back in Halo 2 and 3, there was like little sub communities for every playlist. Like, there was the SWAT Kings in Halo 3, the Slayer kids, the Sniper kids, MLG players, the Dubs kids. Like, people had their own labels and their own like playlists almost. So it was a very unique time. And even in Halo Reach, like, again, you had big team kids. For Halo 3, you had squad battle kids. In Halo 2, you had big team clans. I just feel like to say that there's only one type of competitive playlist in Halo and that's it, and it's MLG, I feel like that's wrong. And I feel like you're doing a disservice to what Halo is and was, and the people who
That
came
is,
before you.
yeah, that is beyond wrong. That all that does is just limit the player base and limits Halo by just having that narrow mindset and narrow thinking about Halo that is just MLG.
And so, to piggyback off this, many players seem to believe that in-game ranks should only cater to the MLG slash hardcore community. So, do you agree with this? And if not, why? Basically, they say that ranks are only for competitive players, and therefore only MLG should be ranked because of it. Because basically, what I'm asking you is, do
Oh,
you believe the
that
notion that only MLG should be ranked and everything else should be social?
that notion, oh my god, it needs to go because there's a ton of good things to get good at in these other playlists and strategies that weren't in MLG. People would use their ego or whatever, and they'll say bubbles, are not competitive or they're stupid, and I hate equipment, so I'm not going to use it. If we want Halo to explode and come back, we need to try and inform people about what Halo really is, and that is not just MLG. It's Halo is just a great multiplayer experience for all types of players. These other players that don't want to go professional, that's fine. They competed out in these other playlists, and because people have different priorities, people have different responsibilities. Everyone wants what they want to get out of Halo is different than what a MLG player wants to get out of Halo, than what a casual Halo player would want, or what a matchmaking player would want. What I wanted out of Halo was just, I love the communication aspect. I love the teamwork aspect. And I love the online friends I made from it. I love doing really good in games and trying my hardest. And I enjoyed working together with teammates and to try and outskill the opponent, outsmart the opponent.
When I was on the come up, like, I've never been to a tournament, never had the ambition or motivation to ever attend a tournament, never cared about being an MLG pro in any aspect or regard. What I wanted to do was I wanted to compete with the best matchmaking players and I guess pros just online and do well and not necessarily like, go to these events and place and try to win money and try to get status or whatever from being a pro. I mean, that was never my intention. I'm not saying that I was ever talented enough to do that, but I'm just saying it's never what I wanted to do. Like, I just wanted to play online. I think Halo 5, they tried to keep those vanilla settings as long as they could. I think they did a good job with that by kind of sticking to their guns and obviously not removing like the AR from matchmaking. But the problem is it was kind of backwards because the only competitive playlists, like they wouldn't remove automatic weapons and radar, and it took them like years to do it. It was kind of backwards. Like, you shouldn't force anyone to play what they don't want to play. And I hope they learn that moving forward. It's like, give people variety, give people options. Like, if you have MLG pros telling you that something should be removed from their playlist, go ahead and remove it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if the general consensus among MLG pros, the people who are competing, not MLG, but, HCS pros, if they're saying, hey, we don't want this in our playlist, we're competing for thousands of dollars, well, I guess millions, we don't want to play this, take it out. Don't leave it in there, but don't enforce that on everybody. If you're gonna make a game for so for Infinite or whatever's after Infinite, if you design a game, like, stick to your guns. Like, if you put something in the game, if there's equipment in Halo Infinite, don't remove it because people don't like it. Leave it in there, let people get good at it. All this is dependent on you having a good ranking system, like 1 through 50 with party matching, stuff like that. Because if you don't have that, then you could throw all that out the window. That's pretty much it. But again, if you have things that are going to retain players, so party matching 1 through 50, if you have like party matching, a good ranking system, and like EXP, I feel like that could really cater to a large audience. And I think a lot of people don't understand this. A lot of the casual players who tend to, well, not casuals, but just the misinformed audience who tend to think that ranks are only for like the pros. What they don't realize is that like everyone is competitive. Like, everyone's competitive to a certain degree and everyone likes to feel like they're getting better. So you're a snipers kid. If you like playing snipes, that should be ranked. If you like playing SWAT, that should be ranked. If you like playing doubles, that should be ranked. If you like playing Slayer, there's no right or wrong here. That's what I'm trying to say is, people, they're like, oh, well, Slayer's not competitive because it has X, Y, and Z in it. But I could make Uno competitive. You know what I mean? Like, we could play checkers and I could make it super competitive and we could play a best of 7 and you could make anything competitive. But just because the MLG pros say something doesn't mean anything. Because again, if you, like I said before, if we went back to 09 and you took 4 pros and we put them up against your team on a vehicle map, like, standoff or something like that, they're not going to beat you. They would be lucky to break 10 kills. Like, realistically, like they probably wouldn't even break 10 kills if it's ARs on standoff, especially if it's your host. So that's kind of what it is. I mean,
There's a lot of misinformation and a lot of bottlenecking of the community and just a lot of narrow-mindedness. We're putting caps and limits on Halo as a whole, as a community. We need to be more open-minded to some of these other playlists, some of these other ways of playing, other reasons why people play Halo. That's the gist of it.
as somebody who played both Halo 3 and Halo Reach at a high level, speak about the differences. Did you enjoy Halo Reach as much as Halo 3, and if not, why?
I did not enjoy it as much as Halo 3. Halo 3 will always be my favorite Halo of all time. But I did enjoy Reach, though. Not to say that I didn't enjoy it. I did enjoy it.
I mean, you were top 50 in
It
Reach.
Yes, I was season 1, I was top 2%. From then on, my team dominated the Team Arena playlist the same way we dominated Halo 3 Team Slayer playlist. The only team that gave us a problem was Guns' and Infernoxide's team, and every other team we just dominated. And we'd easily get top 1%. Yeah, so
So why didn't you enjoy Reach as much as Halo
I
3?
just I just didn't enjoy it as much. I didn't enjoy the concept of Bloom. I didn't enjoy these armor abilities. Although I did, just because I did not enjoy them did not mean I did not use them to my advantage to like help me win the game.
Good point.
Of course I did. I was notorious for using camo a lot. Just because I didn't like those aspects of it, I had a more competitive mindset to it. And armor abilities are in this game, and so I'm going to use it to the most of my advantage then, because it's in the game. I just didn't enjoy Reach as much because the maps weren't as playable. The Banshee was OP. It just didn't feel like Halo. I didn't enjoy the laser. Like, everything seemed just easier to use.
I played Reach when it first came out for the first 6 months. I really wanted to give it a chance. I think it was like 3 to 6 months, like straight, and then I went back to Halo 3. For me, the biggest thing was, the removal of the 1 through 50. I think that was the biggest thing for me and one of the biggest like head scratchers. And Arena, what I noticed in season 1, like the very first day, you ranked up based off your rating. Your rating could be affected by like suicides. You weren't rated the same as your team. It was pretty much off your individual performance. And so like if your teammate betrayed you when you had rockets and they got the rockets and they went on a killing spree, you lost your rating and they gained rating. So it was a flawed system. Again, they later changed it back to the win-loss. That was one of the biggest things for me that I didn't like. The fact that you had to, in order to get Onyx, you had to basically like bait your teammates, because that's what individual ranking systems promote, is like baiting your teammates and playing really safe and passive and sort of letting people die.
Hmm.
And, so I don't know. I mean, like, did you enjoy the Halo Reach ranking system? Like, the obviously like in arena, but also like just the overall system.
I mean, I enjoyed it that it kind of separated with the like top level 50s quotation marks to the lower level 50s kind of by their percentage ranking in arena. I really like that aspect. I did not like the aspect that you can twos trick in Halo's Reach.
Oh
That
yeah,
really
yeah.
that kind of ruined a lot of things for a lot of people. Twos tricking was just an obvious flaw, but it was never dealt with.
Can you go into that for the people who don't know?
Okay, yeah. For people that don't know what twos tricking is you get two parties of two. You get into a party together, a party chat together, and you search the arena playlist. And if you match with each other, you say you matched or you didn't match. And if you both say you matched, then the first four players on that screen are on the same team. So you know for sure that you're going to be matched with your friends. Basically, you have a pseudo team of four and you're going up against solos and duos. It was like pseudo, searching fours, but you would also sometimes match other people that are two tricking as well.
Yeah. So basically, like what he's saying is you would essentially have a party of four versus like solos and duos. And can you speak on that too? Like, again, I don't have this question written down, but can you speak on the importance of party matching and having a team of four versus like here, would any Slayer 50s have beat your team if they were like solos and duos?
No. The way people play fours, the way people play solos and duos, there's different metas for them. There's different ways to be. You can be good at duo queue, but you won't be good at in fours.
Yep.
You can be good at solo and duo, but you won't be good at fours because you don't know how to communicate or you don't know how to work together with your team. And there's just a different meta when you're searching duos. There's more selfishness involved. There's more that you can't rely on your teammates to make good decisions. It's just a different meta. You have to make different decisions. And then when you collide duos and ones with fours, it just doesn't work because the team of four is almost always going to dominate.
A good example of that too would be like if you play a map like Guardian, right? In fours, I mean, the games are notorious for ending like 11 to 10, 15, 14. Like the games can be very, very slow. And in duos, you just kind of run around aimlessly, or like you said, or you kind of sit back and bait your teammates and go, plus 20 in the duos game. But in fours, that's not going to happen when you have four people calling out who are all on the same page, who know their opening rushes, play together, they have chemistry, they trust each other. I keep referencing your team back in 09 and 2010, but you
Yeah.
guys all trusted each other. You guys had faith in each other. So, like, you've played so many games together. You guys almost knew what you were going to do on every single map, right? Like, you know who's
Yeah.
going for sniper. You know who's going for laser. You know who's going for hog. You knew who was driving the hog. You knew who was
Yeah.
gunning the hog. You knew who was getting the chopper every time. That is kind of invaluable, and people don't understand that. You can take four really good 50s who are solo and duo queuing, but if they were against your team, your party of four, it's just not going to be fun for them.
On.
So yeah, I mean that's definitely a big issue that I'm glad is finally getting more attention. Your transition from Halo 3 on the Xbox 360 to Halo 3 on MCC wasn't really easy because
No.
not only were you studying full time to become a pharmacist, but Halo 3 was fundamentally different on MCC. So talk about that transition? I mean, did it have any effect on your ability to perform in game?
I the amount of stress that I was under, I couldn't handle, like trying to be really good at Halo and handling school and handling a job. Like I was up against a lot and I was like kind of in a little bit in over my head. And that was a pretty good looking back on that experience. My pharmacy school experience was a lot of learning lessons and a lot of personal failures that I'm learning from. Hopefully that I continue to learn from and to help me succeed. But I couldn't handle the stress with school and Halo, and I kind of crumbled under pressure. I wasn't the same siphon I was in like '09, '10. Performance anxiety, going through all these issues.
Didn't you actually land in the hospital?
Yes, I did. For those of you who don't know, I get seizures. Right now, there's no, definite cause of it. My brainwave scans and my CAT scans, they all come back normal. So it kind of just happens from stress
Yeah.
and anxiety. With my health problems, I couldn't perform to the best that I could have in Halo MCC.
The thing is, I've never wavered from, my opinion of you. Like, I've always considered you the best Halo 3 Team Slayer player of all time, no matter what you did on MCC. I think we all kind of regressed a little bit. To be fair, though, MCC, it wasn't really the same game, though.
It wasn't the same. MCC and Halo 3, they're two different games and they have two different metas. MCC, I think Halo 3 MCC was the first time that I struggled on a Halo. Whether the struggle was from outside factors or just me,
If you're not putting in the hours that you used to, and you're still able to just beat everyone, like, that's not, you
yeah.
should be losing. That's the thing is, again, people, there's so much ego on Halo that, like, when people beat you, they're like, oh, I beat sSyphoN, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
but really, it's you don't have the same
But like
passion for
I
the
have a
game.
different my reason for playing Halo is kind of different now. I kind of want to like help the new players get better and kind of show them the ropes, kind of be like the Purple Haze was to me and I could be that to somebody else like some of these young guns like Flazin is absolutely nasty.
Yeah, you're like passing the
Like
torch.
I'm playing Halo cuz I just want to get to witness and I want to get to have the chance to play with and against some of the top players again.
I don't think that in MCC Halo 3, I don't think you were bad though.
I definitely wasn't bad,
Right,
but
like you weren't bad.
I just didn't consider myself the top player that I would consider myself that I was in Halo 3
Yeah.
or Halo Reach or Halo 4 or Halo 5.
I've always said though, I feel like the top players in Halo, the top players are the people who care the most. Because if you care a lot about something,
Yeah,
you don't want to
you're gonna
lose.
put in the work.
You're gonna put in the work. You're gonna put in the time, and that's like that's like the focal point of your life. Is when you care
Yeah,
about something so much that that's all you think about and that's all you do. That makes the best players. And I feel like at some point in your life, that's Halo was the focal point of your life.
yeah.
Like it
Yeah,
wasn't,
it was the focus of my life. I liked it because it was something I was good at because I do have mental limitations and it was something that I was good at and something I could be proud of and show to my family, hey, I can do this. I can put in time and I can put in hard work into this and I can be considered one of the best. If I can do that on this, then I can apply this sort of dedication and this hard work into a career, being a pharmacist or being
oh yeah.
a physician assistant or
If you took just half of that effort and applied it to anything else, I
yeah.
think that you could be anything you want to be. And a lot of these players who are currently the top players in the world for matchmaking or even the pros, like if they took just a third of the effort that they put into Halo and they applied it to something else, it's like limitless almost what you can do.
Also, like going back like on that, like when you learn to get some good at something, no matter what it is, you can apply that same formula into a different subject, a different area. And that's kind of how I grew my confidence in other areas of my life. I realized what it took to be good at Halo and I could use that same formula to be good at something else. Although, it'd be entirely different. The hard work and the dedication would still have to be there, practice and setting specific goals.
Halo, it indirectly teaches you a lot about teamwork, a lot about failure. Halo 2 and Halo 3, like the ranking systems, it taught you that you set little goals for yourself. Like in Halo 3, for example, like, a lot of people, if they were like a 35, they'd want to get to that 40. They want to
Yeah.
get to that kernel. And then, like,
Yeah.
once they hit 40, they want to get to that 45. So, like, you set little goals, you achieve those goals, you feel accomplished. When you're playing a team-based game, you want to, like, work well with your teammates, you want to communicate. There's so many things that Halo teaches you, and, like, you could apply that to different, things in your life, and you could really be successful. And, like I said, I think a lot of these top players currently, if they just took a third of the effort that they put into Halo, they can do so much.
Definitely.
We've spoke about this personally, but talk about perceived regression, feeling underappreciated among a new generation
Oh.
of Halo players.
Yeah, I did feel underappreciated with a new generation of MCC players. I really did enjoy playing with MCC people, and they really showed me like, that they are good.
Yeah,
And I definitely would say that I regressed a little bit in skill. What I didn't like was just the underappreciation.
yeah, because like
It was kind of uncalled for, and I know egos clash, but still.
we've spoke about this privately, obviously, and it's just like knowing where you came from and like appreciating the people who came before you.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of these young guns, these guys coming up, these 18, 19, 20-year-olds, like they're talking trash, they're teabagging in game, like
Yeah.
they're not showing you any type of love, no respect. And I'm a huge advocate of acting like you've been there before. I've talked about this in previous videos. If you want to play amongst the best players in Halo, you just got to be modest. Like
Exactly.
even if you don't feel like they're better than you or like you really do believe that you're the best, which you should always, don't sit there and talk shit. Don't
Yeah.
teabag and smack bodies and say
If you
you're
have to
bad and
teabag
you're
and talk
this.
shit that you're better than someone, you're obviously and
Correct. And, it was sort of like the people on 360 who, I'm sure you've been screenshotted a bunch of times. The people who screenshot and they save a picture of like someone beating someone, like dude, that's so ticky tack. If like, for example, if you play someone on MCC and you could beat them 50 times, you won't even think about it. But if they beat you one time, you're bad, you're trash, you're this, you're that, and they'll screenshot it, they'll clip you. If they ever see you in a Twitch chat or so, they'll talk. You know what I mean? So just people are just so ticky tack, and generally it's like the younger crowd. It's like the 18, 19, 20-year-olds who are going to develop in life, both like mentally and emotionally. Like right now, they're still young. So it's yeah, like the underappreciation. Like I know we've talked about that, and like I know it kind of affected you.
I mean, yeah, I was generally upset about that because I put a lot of time into it.
Well, and again, people also don't consider. We just talked about the circumstances. I mean, you can't dedicate a lot of your time into Halo anymore, so people don't understand that. That's why I've always gave credit where it's due. I mean, there's been a lot of people, honestly, who've I'm not gonna name any. I'm not gonna name people, but there's been a lot of people who were good back in the day and maybe aren't so good now, but I still acknowledge them and respect them for who they are. And like, if I ever beat them in match, like I'm not gonna sit there and talk shit. I don't ever teabag or send messages. Like, if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. The good people know that they're good. They don't got to tell you. So,
That is true. That is very true.
but anyway, so talk about modern versus classic Halo. I mean, as a veteran who was once one of the best matchmaking players in the world, how do you feel about the new direction that Halo took after Halo 3?
The direction Halo took after Halo 3 was they weren't continuing onto Halo more than they were copying stuff from other like Call of Duty games. They're definitely trying to sell the most Halos and not stick to Halo and try to change it more into a Call of Duty kind of game. They wanted to appeal, I guess, more to the masses with that, but I don't think that worked out for them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously not, because you could go back and we can look at the games. I mean, Halo Reach, which maintained a decent population for about a year and a half, and then there was kind of a dip, and then obviously once Halo 4 came out, 6 months the game was under 50,000 players. That's not debatable. And then of course MCC, one of the worst launches probably ever for a game.
Yeah.
And then Halo 5. So yeah, I mean that direction. I've always said Halo Reach killed Halo. That's what I'm always gonna believe. It's not that Halo Reach was a bad game. Halo Reach was actually a good game compared to Halo 4 and 5. And,
Definitely agree with that.
because again, like a lot of my friends play, like Dominator was ranked very high in Reach. Like you were ranked pretty high in Reach, respectful. Like all these guys were huge Reach players. The removal of the 1 through 50 ranks, party matching, that was a big thing. Arena playlist, I mean, again, like I said, I wasn't a fan of how that was ranked, like off your individual performance, like every game. And then they removed doubles and FFA from Arena, which MLG was never ranked. So there was just so many things with Reach that I can go on for days, and they went too far from what Halo originally was. That was kind of
Yeah.
how I feel about it.
They definitely they didn't really stick to what Halo was, and they tried to make it something it wasn't, and it didn't work out. And then they kept going down that path,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
kept not working out.
Yeah, no, correct. And so, like, in your opinion, what is Halo? You loved Halo 1, the campaign, played Halo 2 at a very high level. You were a 44, your brother was a 48 in Halo 2. And then you go to Halo 3, and you're one of the most dominant players in history, like in matchmaking history. So, in your own words, what is Halo?
Halo is basic competitive shooter. It doesn't have a lot. For me, Halo was just a basic shooter. You have a gun. There's weapons on the map. There's equipment on the map. You know, no sprint, no armor abilities, no gimmicks, just a 4v4 competitive shooter that took skill.
What was your thoughts on Halo 5? I know you played Halo 5 a little bit. Did you enjoy the game?
I did not enjoy Halo 5. I think that was the first Halo I did not enjoy.
What did you dislike about Halo 5?
I disliked a lot of things. I didn't like the pistol. I didn't like the maps. It didn't feel like Halo to me. It just I didn't enjoy it.
I didn't enjoy it either, so you're not alone there. So yeah, any final thoughts, plugs, comments?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. Well, yeah, I will have all your links in the video description. So guys, make sure you guys check sSyphoN out. He does stream from time to time, I believe, and he's got a Twitter, so follow him. And yeah, all right.
Thank you guys.
All right, so that's it for the podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you to sSyphoN for coming on, sharing his story. Again, I apologize for the length of the video. I know it's quite a bit shorter than the other ones, but I had to trim a lot of stuff. We only talked for about an hour, so I will do my best to make it up to you guys. Let me know down below who you guys want to see on the podcast. I do have some planned guests. I'm not going to give anything away, but I do have some people who want to get on and talk, both old and new faces. So make sure you guys like, favorite, comment, subscribe. Love you guys. Peace.